still in effect until 9 p.m. tonight for parts of central Alabama. We're on your side with what we're expecting for the rest of the week and if you should keep a fan handy for the weekend.
WBRC Fox 6 News. First Alert Weather Extra starts now.
Oh, I'm beating the heat. I'm beating the heat. I'm beating the heat. Yeah. Hey, Mike.
What are you doing?
Mike, I was listening to our crack weather team, and they said if you want to beat the heat from outdoor activities, find a spot in the shade and knock it down a little bit. Do a little resting. Wear some light colored clothing, which I'm doing. I got a portable fan. I also have this water right here.
Very smart.
And I've got my hat on, and I am beating the heat. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's pretty smart. You know what else be smarter? Yeah. Going inside with the air conditioning is. By the way, who's got this door?
Well, I put that there because I lost my key. I put that there because I lost my key.
So I guess I'll just be out here, just I'm beating the heat, I'm beating the heat, I'm beating the heat. Yeah.
Wes, is he still out there?
He may still be
We need to
outside.
go check.
Maybe that's the reason why we had a couple of pop-up showers today.
Maybe,
Maybe Mickey kind of summoned in a little bit of rain there for us.
Thanks,
to
Mickey.
Beat the heat, right?
Yeah, beating the heat. We need to add that to your next album.
There you go. Hey, it sounds like a good topic. But Lauren, glad to have you back here with us for Weather Extra. And the big story, obviously, it's the heat. But also nice to see a couple of pop-up showers.
Hey.
Matt, I walked in, Matt said, hey, we got a little bit of rain popping up. I'm glad I put that 10% chance of rain in the forecast.
Yeah, I mean, you can get those. You get that hot, humid day. Eventually, the atmosphere just wants to pop something out for you.
Yeah, it's just so hot out there today.
is.
So you're going to get a couple of those little showers bubbling up. And let's go right to radar here, show you where some of that rain's popping up. Had a little downpour. It wasn't far from Pinnacle Motorsports. You'll notice the temperature there, 88 degrees, a little bit of an improvement. But here's some of that shower activity that's tracking south, and it's moving fairly quickly to the south direction. Won't last long, but enough to help knock the temperature down a few degrees around Irondale and also over towards places like Brookwood Road. You can see, or Old Leeds Road, I should say, as that moves to the south, and Mountain Brook areas there may be a brief little downpour. We had a little shower around Vandiver, and as common on a day like this where most areas are just dry out there, these little pop-ups, you get these little cumulus clouds, they develop and then they grow into a downpour and then they just collapse. They don't last long, but we are seeing a couple of areas there. Most of these little isolated showers will fall apart tonight once the temperature starts to lower. But I'm zoomed in. This is the Kirk community and Nolan community. This is Pickens County. This is Tuscaloosa County over here. But just showing in West Alabama that there is one little downpour also moving to the south. And there was some rain. A little shower passed over Clanton, and that has since dissipated, as we can see right there. One of the big stories here, I want to give you that weather extra view of what's happening with Tropical Storm Debby, and plenty of moisture with this system here as we track that system over the next couple of days. It's going to continue moving north through Friday right along the east coast. You can see some areas in here. We're going to see some rain amounts. We've already had over 15 inches in some areas, and we're just adding to that. So the flooding concern still a big story there for the east coast, and all that rain with that system, it's all staying to the east of us. So that system is mostly going to impact the east coast, but confidence increasing that it is moving to the north. So we're not too worried about Debby, but we are worried about this heat as we have the heat advisory through 9 o'clock tonight. Still a couple isolated showers, most of us staying dry, and we have a nice weekend, as Lauren was talking about, coming up here. Looks like those temperatures, one of the next big things, we could see temperatures as low as 64 degrees in parts of our area, especially places like Coleman as we go into early morning hours for this weekend. But back to Tropical Storm Debby. That system actually strengthened again today. The max sustained winds are now back up to 60 miles per hour, and it's going to continue along the eastern seaboard, producing that very heavy rainfall. But just to show you some of the scenes coming in as of today, it just continues to pour there around parts of North Carolina as it moves along. An extreme flood risk will be in effect for not only North Carolina tomorrow, but we could see this continue up into parts of Virginia. The central part of the state could end up with 10 additional inches of rainfall. Just unbelievable. One resident is hopeful that the impacts won't be too bad.
Planning on being down here through the end of next weekend. Really hasn't changed the plans much at all. Certainly will change what we do the next 2 or 3 days.
But usually after these storms, weather's beautiful after the storms. We're just hoping for no damage for anybody and no difficulty getting down here from out west.
Well, obviously the flooding, that's been a big story with this system, but with all tropical systems, especially after landfall, there is that threat for tornadoes, and folks will be watching out for that, as several have already been confirmed in South Carolina.
Well, though Debbie didn't make a direct hit on the Alabama Gulf Coast, with the peak of hurricane season on the horizon, it's always a good idea to be prepared. I spoke with Dr. Youngja Song, an industrial engineering professor at Clemson University, who told me about how his research aims to make evacuating during a storm a more streamlined process. Dr. Song, we wanted to talk with you today about the research that you've been doing at Clemson University regarding hurricane evacuations. Can you kind of just give me a little brief summary of the work that you do?
Sure, of course. I'm an industrial engineer, and I deal with decision making under uncertainty situation like hurricanes and things like that. So I have been focusing on building this kind of decision support tools to help guide, evacuation, decision making, and all of the associated logistics planning, such as sheltering, transportation systems, and things like that, to make sure that we have a sort of a reasonable response to these hurricane events.
So we know sometimes, as we've seen with Debbie, you won't necessarily see an evacuation order issued, but when you do see an evacuation order issued, sometimes it can almost seem chaotic. How does your research help that on both government administrative level, but also a personal level to make decisions?
Of course. So, this evacuation decision may sound like a very simple one because it's a yes or no decision, right? But actually it's very, very complicated. The reason why it is complicated because the weather forecast is not accurate 100%. However, we do know that as we get closer to the forecast date, our prediction will typically get better and better. So a 2-day forecast is expected to be better than like a 5-day forecast. So what we're talking about here is that the time is a very valuable resource. And, the timing of the evacuation decision is basically the trade-off between, the additional information that we may gain through waiting a little bit longer versus the actual cost that might be incurred if we wait for too long. So, for example, if we evacuate too early, we may, make a premature decision. We may not, need to evacuate, but if we did that, versus we wait until the last minute and then everything is rushed, maybe the cost of evacuation will be very high in that case. So how to find this sort of the right balance is something that we do. And also, the government, the state or local level, to take a lot into account, what kind of risk that the hurricane event is gonna occur to especially the coastline, due to the heavy wind, the storm surge, and the flooding, etc. So when they make those plans, they have this kind of long-term evacuation plan that is made ahead of time, and they have a lot to think about, such as the evacuation order, how people are going to respond to the evacuation order. Will they comply to it? And also, if they do, what's going to be the traffic patterns and what's going to be the shelter population? All of that are brought into the equation here.
All right, welcome back into First Alert Weather Extra. Heat advisories are still in effect until 9 o'clock. You can see places like Jasper, Double Springs, Tuscaloosa, Centerville, even around the Birmingham area. But we actually have a couple of pop-up showers that are showing up out there. And you can see that chance for an isolated shower continues through 7 o'clock, 8, 9, 10 o'clock tonight, though. Most areas will be dry, just another hot evening. You can see that temperature there around 9 o'clock at 86 degrees. But we will have a similar setup for tomorrow. tomorrow. Very hot during the afternoon. I know it's back to school for many students again tomorrow. And then as we look ahead to the weekend, perhaps some cooler mornings. We'll update you on the 7-day forecast. That's coming up, Lauren.
Well, Wes, now to the West Coast, where a 5.2 magnitude earthquake struck Southern California just last night. The earthquake's epicenter hit near the city of Lamont and roughly 25 miles south of Bakersfield, just after 9 o'clock Pacific time. Take a look at how the camera shook at the Santa Monica Pier. At least 30 small quakes were recorded over the next hour, ranging from 2.5 to 4.5. Thankfully, according to the LA Fire Department, no significant damage or injuries were reported in that area. Well, meanwhile, up in Alaska, the capital city experiencing destructive flooding from a melting glacier. It's being called a glacial lake outburst, which happens when a lake of melting snow, ice, and rain drains rapidly after pooling and overtopping the glacier that had been holding it back. The water causing an Alaska river to swell to record levels. By Monday, city officials warned residents they may need to evacuate, calling the flooding along the Mendenhall River unprecedented. It happened nearly a year to this date for a similar event, and scientists attribute that more frequent outbursts of seeing that with potentially a warming climate, which can cause, when you get warmer temperatures, glaciers to thin or melt altogether.
Rainfall and flooding will take place until Wednesday morning. If you live in a basement or a ground floor apartment, be prepared to leave your location if flooding occurs.
And check this out, New York City emergency management officials using drones to warn residents about potential threatening weather. It has a loudspeaker that you could hear there, and it flies over homes, warning those who live in the basement or ground floor apartments about heavy rainfall. And emergency officials said the messages were being relayed in multiple languages as they were deployed to specific neighborhoods who are prone to flooding. And these drones are in addition to other forms of emergency messaging, including social media and text alerts. Even heard earlier today the outdoor warning sirens tested across our area today. But make sure you always check your NOAA weather radio. Make sure it's in alert mode and always on ready just in case we have threatening weather. But will we see any active weather in the days ahead? We'll be talking about our 7-day forecast, more on this heat and where we're tracking a little bit of rain. I'll show you after the break.
Okay, Joe, we are about to get started here. So we're in the commercial break before your interview. And I think I'm talking with production now, just making sure they can hear you okay.
I hope they can.
Yeah, I can hear you through my ear, so that's a good sign. Oh yeah, let me turn up the iPad. Okay, how about now?
Okay, now I can't hear you.
Okay, Joe, can you speak again, please?
I can speak again. I just hear you as a whisper.
Yeah, yeah, that's perfect. I had the iPad volume turned way low, so that wasn't going to be successful for us. So
Okay.
when we're talking, I'm going to be looking in a camera, so it'll seem like I'm being rude and not looking at you, but I am.
I don't think anybody's rude. I'm used to it.
Okay. So we're about 1:30 out.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, and Joe, I want to make sure I pronounce your last name correctly. It's Belitsky?
It's Belitsky is perfect.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Nothing like a Polish name.
Yeah. Polish, yeah, okay. I worked with a meteorologist who was Polish, and his last name was Szygotsky. Welcome back to First Alert Weather Extra. Meteorologist Lauren Linehan. The heat and humidity has been unrelenting while we're in the thick of the dog days of summer, so you may be desperate to find some additional ways to keep cool. Today, I'm joined by Dr. Joe Belitsky, who is a former NASA scientist and the co-founding scientist of Humid, who is here to talk to us about the best ways to keep cool, especially for those of you who work outside. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
Well, tell us more about this research you're doing, because it sounds like it's so relevant to not just us here in the Deep South, but other people who have to work outside. I know your research, if I understand correctly, was in the field of body temperature regulation, and it sounds like it's something you did while you were working with U.S. soldiers in Iraq.
Yep. This really started about 20 years ago when we were in the Middle East, and we found that, the military personnel wear long sleeves, long pants, boots, helmets, body armor, carry 100 pounds on their back, and we expect them to work in 120-degree temperatures, and it just wasn't working well. So we really set out to say, okay, how can we cool the warfighter in this field of combat? And the work pertains to people in firefighters, people working in industry, roofers, gardeners, agricultural workers, kind of clean across the board. But what we found is that, the body has temperature sensors, tells us whether it's hot or cold outside. Unfortunately, those aren't the same sensors. It tells our body to turn on a cooling apparatus. And so we found everybody knows we perspire when we get hot. One of the other things that happens is we have a bunch of capillaries in the palms of our hands, soles of our feet, cheeks, and forehead that will open up to increase their surface area so they can start to dump heat to the environment. And so what Coolman has done is it's developed a countercurrent cooling mechanism that interfaces with the hand. And we find that we can actually lower core body temperature about 2 degrees in 15 minutes. For a person in heat stroke, that could be life-saving.
Wow, that's incredible. And I know sometimes you will see, okay, people are outside, they're trying to keep cool. We know about 1/3 of workers are impacted by heat that you especially see during the summer. So let's say you're outside and want to keep cool, get a wet towel. What are some common myths you hear that are the best ways to keep people cool?
Well, one of the things people frequently will do is put a wet cold towel around their neck or in their groin or in their armpits, and the blood flow through that area is so fast, there's very, very little heat exchange. So the palms where there's capillary beds with huge surface area is really the most efficient. But for people who can't, get a cool mitt, one of the easiest ways to do it is to just plain and simple put your hands in a bucket of cold tap water. Put your feet in cold water. And we do this all the time if you think about it. You get really hot, you really don't mind sticking your feet in the pool. It really does provide relief. Forehead, cheeks are the best places to cool, plus the palms of your hands. When you're actually overheated, they will be nice and pink. And when you're cold, they're going to be white. So you can even tell when they're ready to work. But they are probably the most efficient way to cool that our body has. And we find that almost every four-legged animal uses those 4 points for cooling. Probably the best example is a dog and cat.
That's so interesting. And just thinking about myself as a human, I know during the summer months, I've started using a cooling blanket at night to try to keep cool because the AC alone isn't doing enough. But that was so interesting to hear about the capillaries. Dr. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today. We may have to have you back on Weather Extra sometime soon.
Hey, no problem. Anytime. It's a pleasure.
All right, great job there and some great information, especially with all this heat we're dealing with right now. We've got heat advisories through 9 o'clock this evening. 86 right now, a live look from Boardman Carr Law Firm. I'm showing you this camera view I've been watching to see if there's a shower nearby, if we might catch a few raindrops here. A little bit of rain that was moving to the south. As we go over to radar, well, the scans updated. We had a little passing shower. You can see the airport right there. A little shower was showing up that tracked to the south. Let's go in for another view here south of town. You can see south of Acton Road there. You get in towards Highway 280. Here's 280 right here. There's Cahaba Valley Road. So Highway 280, Cahaba Valley. That's where we got. There's a big shopping area here, of course, with the Publix. And if you're, if you're very familiar with this area, you know exactly where I'm talking about here. And a nursery. A lot of rain that's happening at this time. That's going to be tracking to the south towards Park Road and Chelsea, if it does hold together. And we head over to West Alabama and a little will pop up. That's right on the Pickens-Tuscaloosa County line, and that is tracking south towards Romulus Road. So a little bit of rain out there, and today, I mean, we were thinking we wouldn't see hardly anything today, and it's been nice to actually see a few pop up. Certainly no complaints, but with this, when it's hot like this, you know how it is in the summer. You just can't totally rule out a pop-up shower. We'll keep a mention of a stray shower in the forecast tomorrow, but still, for most of us, it's just hot and dry. Notice in the morning, 70s out the door. We'll take it into Thursday afternoon, and temperatures very similar. We're going to see some 90s again for tomorrow. One thing to notice, the wind there out of the north-northwest at 8 miles per hour. As we go into Friday, we're going to have a nice little north wind kicking in. Some of the data suggests we might see some gusts out there over 20 miles per hour in parts of the area, so we might actually have a breezy end to the work week as Debby finally pulls away, and we're expecting this system to move north. Right now it's actually strengthened, as we talked about. It may be a very powerful 65-mile-per-hour winds there, very powerful tropical storm overnight. Might even, I don't know if it's going to become a hurricane again, but it's going to be close. I mean, you reach 74, you're talking about a Category 1 hurricane. So we'll see what happens overnight tonight, but it will continue to the north and stay well to the east of us. As we move ahead, though, over the next couple of days, as that system pulls away, you can see on the muggy meter, it drops way off into Saturday and into Sunday. So that's going to bring some nice improvements there during the morning hours, especially early on Sunday, as those low temperatures will be down into the 60s there. Your really nice start to the day, and even the feels like temperature, those afternoon highs Saturday and Sunday, 91 to 92 degrees. We're going to be talking about the afternoon highs in the 90s, lows in the 60s, but it looks like a very dry forecast here as we go through this week. We're going to have more weather extra after the break. All right, first alert, 7-day forecast, Lauren. I was talking about this weekend. The feels like temperatures are right around 92, which reflects the high temperature.
That's nice for once, because it literally has not felt like that in a while.
I know it hasn't, and I mentioned it earlier too. This is the time of year going into fall, ragweed levels are back. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, first alert for ragweed. That stuff's brutal.
It is. Someone posted said it can be worse. You know, we talk about pollen season in the springtime, but going into the fall. But it's a very dry forecast. Might be a couple isolated showers. We're going to be watching into Tuesday and Wednesday. We're certainly not seeing the kind of rain like what's happening to the east associated with Tropical Storm Debby. But I believe we have a photo. If we could go to that. This is from, I pulled this up on the Twitter feed. This is from our sister station, WMBF, there in Myrtle Beach. But even the snapping turtles are seeking higher ground because they've had so much rain.
Oh, poor thing.
Jamie Arnold, one of the chief meteorologists there, shared this on his Twitter feed. And this was from Bradley Phillips in the Cherry Grove community there. But Lauren, 15 plus inches of rainfall. They're going to add to that in the story we had earlier as we come back to camera here. We're going to see 10 plus inches of rain in some of those areas as this continues north.
Yeah, and I know these areas are so prone to flooding too, especially when we're talking about the low country. When you talk about Savannah, Charleston, you already have really low sea level there. So it's just so prone. It doesn't take much water to flood these areas, unfortunately.
You always think about when it comes to the lowlands, you know, down along the Gulf Coast, and those areas certainly very vulnerable.
Yeah, not great up there either. But it's almost like I wish we could just kind of siphon off the rain a little bit, get us a little bit, and have them a little bit less.
I know that's the way it works. It all happens in one spot, and you're like, you know, let's just spread it all out. But that's not happening right now. But we will be watching the tropics closely, of course, as we head on through the month of August. We'll be back tonight to talk more about the temperatures for tomorrow, and hopefully down the road we have some better news on rain chances. We'll let you know.